Hey, baseball fans, this is Buster Olney. Mark your calendars because the daily edition of the Baseball Tonight podcast returns on Tuesday, February 21st. Make sure you subscribe to the show now in the Listen tab of the ESPN app.
All the dogs are counting down, about to put the anchor down. Hotty toddy, who's it gonna be? Cowbells and swamp, the Aggies wrong. There's nothing like the SEC. The weekend's full of surprise.
Hit him with the flex.
From Williams Place to Death Valley. On the Finebaum Show, Paul's on the roll. If he don't get the best of me, call Paul.
Alabama. It's your show. Go ahead.
He'll make sense of it all.
You got a damn burn crappy attitude.
Needles up on Rocky Top. The Razorbacks are hard to stop. War Eagles soaring in the wind.
Let me talk, Danny.
Okay, go.
Tigers rocking in the zoo. Wildcats are grinning too. Talk about the tide that's rolling in. The weekend's full of surprises. From big upsets to rivalries. On the Finebaum Show, heads are gonna roll. If they don't get the best of me, we'll call Paul. He'll make sense of it all.
I really don't know where to go after that.
Don't take those calls.
I could give you my address and phone number if you're ever in this neck of the woods.
In my life, I've never had a phone call like that. We heard as we came into the show, that was Taylor Hicks doing the Call Paul song. Great article right now on AL.com, the big website in the state of Alabama, interviewing Taylor Hicks about what went into writing that song. For those of you interested in reading it, it's on AL.com right now. Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. Kevin is up next. Kevin, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Hey, I know there was a commercial break there, but, man, following Phyllis, that's big shoes to fill.
Yeah, we wanted to give you a break.
Yeah. Well, look, hey, I'm a long-time listener. I don't get to call as much as I used to because, to be honest, once your star just shot off from regional to global, it's just it's that much harder to get in. That phone line's always busy, but it's good to see you succeed.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you made it in.
Yeah, you and your staff work hard. We enjoy it. We enjoy the entertainment. But I've got, the main theme of today's show seems to be just getting a little too much airtime to suit this Crimson Tide fan. And so I want to try to steer the show in a different direction, and I'm going to ask you a question. I want an honest opinion from you.
Okay, sure.
And so here we go. So I need a sincere opinion from you, and I need to know whether or not you believe, in your honest opinion, David Lee or Sammy made Van Halen a better band. That's much more important.
Let me ask Rob. What do you think?
I got to go David Lee.
David Lee, according to Rob here, who knows that band better than I do.
Hey, that's a good man working for you right there. I agree with him 100%.
Okay.
All right, Paul.
I won't go Sammy Hagar was overrated, but I'll save that for another day. Thank you for the call.
Yep.
That's good. That was a great question, though. I've never had that question. Harold is next up in the ATL here. Hello, Harold.
Hello, Mr. Finebaum. Thank you for taking my call. This is my second time to get through. You probably don't remember me. I'm the old fellow that finished at LSU in 1950.
Oh, I do remember that, yes.
And an earlier caller had called you to ask you where you rated the Oklahoma coach.
Yeah, Bud Wilkinson.
And I was at LSU when we were thrown to the Hogs around everybody else. We played Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl January the 1st, either 1949 or 1950.
Wow.
They beat us 20-0. We didn't win the Southeast Conference, but we got in the Sugar Bowl because we beat Tulane, and they won the Southeast Conference. We beat North Carolina because there you had Choo-Choo Justice. They won the ACC, and we beat Rice, and they won the Southwest Conference. So we had beaten 3 major conference winners, even though our record was not that good. But that was a long time ago. But we were right in the middle of those undefeated teams of Bud Wilkins.
Well, I'll tell you what, he had a run. I looked this up while we were talking. That very few coaches have ever from 48, Harold, until 59. He finished in the final AP poll 5th, 2nd, 1st, 10th, 4th, 4th, 3rd, 1st, 4th, 5th. I mean that's Saban-esque right there.
It's unbelievable.
And when he had those he had those winning streaks. They had 2 winning streaks that were just unparalleled in college football history.
He got as many good boys out of Texas as the Southwest Conference schools. Texas and Texas A&M was in the Southwest Conference, of course, at that time.
He had a 47-game winning streak between 53 and 57.
Unbelievable.
It's pretty good.
Well, anyway, I enjoy your program. I'm glad I got through, and one of these days I'll get through enough that I'll call you Paul instead of
I hope you will. Thank
Finebaum.
you. Yeah, as soon as that, by the way, after that 47 ended, I think he ran off another 31. I mean, that's he does not get enough credit because he really was before most of our time. Maybe not that guy, but thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Donnie is in Nashville. Hello, Donnie.
Hello. I think you have some, first of all, first-time caller, long-time listener. But I think you have some misinformation about Hacksaw Jim Reynolds.
Okay, let's get it right.
No, I don't know if this is right for sure, but I'm pretty sure.
In the era of fake news, what difference does it make?
Okay. Where he actually went to college at Tennessee Tennessee Technological University.
Okay.
And not the University of Tennessee. A lot of people think that, but I'm pretty sure there are a few famous alumni from Tennessee Tech, most of them engineers and fish and wildlife people, but there's another pitcher that played in the majors, David. I had his last name on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it.
Well, first of all, Jack Reynolds played for Tennessee.
Oh, you know that?
Well, yeah. I mean,
well, maybe my information is wrong. I heard that he played on a broken leg.
Well, that may have been the story, but I mean, he definitely played at Tennessee in the '60s or the '70s,
okay.
Late '60s.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'm wrong on that because we fought about that a lot. Tennessee fans.
No, one story says the famous '69 game, which we've talked about here, the 38-0 loss to Ole Miss. Tennessee was, I think, second in the country. We had a call from Steve Kiner one day because Steve, if you remember the story, was asked about Archie Manning before the game, and he said Archie who, and it became bumper stickers, and then Archie led his team to that big win. And the story is that he ripped up a car after that game. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know that much about Jack Reynolds other than that he'll probably call in and correct all these stories just like Steve Kiner did that night.
Yeah. The only other thing I had was since you were talking a little bit about Vanderbilt today, which I'm glad to hear. Is what do you think their record will be this year?
I think they're going to improve on this year. I really thought that team got better, and Ralph's back, I think, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Ralph's been there for 15 years.
Yeah.
It seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what a great running back and what a great person. I expect them to go to a bowl game again. And beyond that, it's a little bit hard to predict. But thanks for the call. Really, right. Charlie is up next in Memphis, Tennessee.
Hey, Pete.
Hey, Charlie. I got a note from you today.
Hey, what happened to Pete? I mean, he looked like you. You got twin brothers.
Pete had to go. Pete had to go home. He was upset. Jim Harbaugh hurt his feelings, and he went home crying.
Well, I got my feelings hurt yesterday. I mean,
Hey, by the way, thanks for the note today. I really appreciated that.
Did you get the token?
I got the token. I sure did, and showed it to John, and we were pretty jacked to get it. That was quite a note. I really appreciate you telling me a little more about yourself.
Well, the first thing off about that token is if we would have had 2 more minutes, we would have won that damn game, and that would have been 16-0.
What was that,
You there,
Charlie?
Paul?
Yeah, somebody else was talking to me.
Oh, hey, I got one thing to say about my call yesterday where I got compared to the one flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't Jack Nicholson. I was the cuckoo. Well, I want to tell you something. I'm the Jack Nicholson from the Batman movie, The Joker. And I'm the, wait till you get a load of me out, man, because you know what? I can bring it. I will bring it, because all you can do is dance by the pale moon light. Man, you hear me? You're from Auburn, and that's in Alabama. I'm Alabama. Man, take that. Take it. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it. We'll take a break. We need a break. Still 15 minutes to go here on a Friday night. Give us a ring. Welcome back. We are glad you are with us as we head toward Friday night and the weekend. Our good friend Kyle Tucker joining us. Always great to catch up with Kyle from SEC Country. Kyle, thanks for the time, and we had a nice visit a couple weeks ago. We wanted to ask you, Jim Harbaugh, as many people have heard by now, has come after me on Twitter after some comments I made earlier this week on Outside the Lines. I know you cover John Calipari. How would you compare Harbaugh's outburst not only against me but against 4 SEC coaches versus John Calipari? Is this anything that you would expect or have heard from Cal in recent past?
Well, Pete, first of all, I'd say that I think Cal has probably mellowed in that regard in terms of just really coming at people, but he's certainly not above it. He's done it in his career. I think people have said he called into radio shows when he was with the Nets in fake voices. He's had a few members of the national media that he's singled out in the past that he feels like are sort of against him. This is the guy who has said, "You come after mine, and I'll burn down your village." So that's a quote that he's given before. It's one that I think it's in one of his many books he's written. So he has some vendetta qualities, I think, in him, but I think he's mellowed a little bit over the years. He certainly hasn't, I don't think that I can recall, attacked anybody on Twitter. He usually uses the Twitter machine as sort of his personal PR arm to get his message out there.
And Kyle, that's what most coaches use Twitter for. Most coaches, as we both know, don't even tweet. Someone does it for them. Would that be fair to say in Cal's case?
Yeah, I think yes, it's fair. I am not 100% certain he's ever hit the button on a tweet. I do know he oversees everything that's said. I know that he messages the people who are in charge of his tweets. He'll send them pictures. He'll send them, hey, here's what I want to say. I'm sure what would be a really interesting thing to see would be the cutting room floor, the tweets. And so I say that he hasn't jumped on anybody on Twitter, but there's probably a few on the cutting room floor that he sent to some people he trusts who vetoed those messages in angry or maybe over-the-top cocky moments that he's had. I have almost no doubt that there are a few of those.
But as we talked about, I think it was 3 weeks ago tonight at Rupp Arena, you talked about his podcast, which has become very successful and very popular. Do I remember, or don't I, Harbaugh being on that podcast?
Yeah, he came on. It was very interesting. Cal's had some very interesting guests on that podcast: Phil Knight, Charles Barkley, Mike Krzyzewski, Rick Pitino. The interesting evolution of that is the Harbaugh one was one of the early ones, and I almost had to scream at my radio because I think Cal early on, he likes to hear himself talk. You may know that about John Calipari. And early on in the podcast, in particular the Harbaugh podcast, he was having a hard time letting the guest speak, and it was funny to hear him talk over top of Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh was trying to tell a story about visiting a recruit and wrestling the recruit in the floor, and Cal kept interrupting him. And at one point, Harbaugh actually said, "Let me finish my story." I got a pretty big kick out of that, and it's been interesting to watch Cal, the sort of the radio host, the podcast host, evolve, and I think listen to some people to say, "Hey, you got to let it breathe. Ask your question and then let them talk a little bit."
Yeah, I mean, it's tough enough for people, Kyle, in our industry because some of us, I'll just include us all in the same boat here, can't ever, they answer their own questions because they do like to hear themselves talk.
Absolutely.
Coaches probably are a little even more unique, and Cal would be at the number one on that hit parade. Let me get to the sport of the moment. The Cats, when we were up there before the KU game, no one really knew which way this program was going, and it took quite a dip, but it seems to be back. Your assessment of the Wildcats?
Yeah, the other night, Tuesday night against Tennessee was big because that was their first sort of rematch game of the season, their first chance to get back at somebody that beat them. And Tennessee really started that skid, that 4-game skid where they lost 3 games and they barely beat Georgia in overtime, and they'll get another crack at a team that challenged them, Georgia, on the road this weekend. But that Tennessee game was the first of those bad games, the bad performances and Calipari called it right after the game. He said, "I told these guys, if you don't start playing better, you're going to lose 3 or 4 more," and they did. The big things that happened in that stretch where they stopped sharing the ball, this was an offense that was scoring 90 or 100 points routinely, really moving the ball, getting out in transition, and some of that transition was predicated on defense, and the defense was not always great, but it was disrupting and could lead to offense, and that kind of went away. They got back to that. I think Calipari really emphasized it. One of the big things he's talked about is putting a 15-point lead on the board because they were blowing big leads was a big part of this. Put a 15-point lead on the board in practice with a certain amount of time and practice situationally, how do you protect this? And then put a deficit on the board and practice situationally, how do we come back from this? And when you got 4 freshmen starting, those are things that you think they know. He said, I thought they knew some of this stuff and they don't. So he went back to teaching some of that basic stuff, and I think you could see it. They beat Tennessee by 25 on Tuesday night. The ball was really moving around. Guys were passing up better shots for teammates. The defense got after it a little bit, and so I think things are trending in the right direction, but it'll be interesting to see them take that act on the road now against a team that really pushed them in Rupp Arena.
Yeah, and that was a game a lot of people came away from thinking Georgia should have won, and here's Georgia now slipping and sliding in desperate need of a significant win. We've seen 1 or 2 teams, namely Arkansas, get one on the road the other night in Columbia. What's your assessment of this Bulldog team, and how badly do they need this win?
Yeah, I don't even know if this one would get them in the NCAA tournament. It would probably certainly put them in the conversation, but they really let one slip away at Rupp Arena. De'Aaron Fox, the starting point guard for Kentucky, was out of that game. He was sick. And if Malik Monk doesn't hit a long jumper at the end of regulation, they win that game in Rupp Arena, which very few teams do. It would have been the first time ever Kentucky had lost 3 home games under John Calipari. And I know there are so many of those on Georgia's schedule when you go back through it. They kind of got hosed at Texas A&M. Just multiple games that they were right there at the end and had a chance to win and couldn't close it out. I think they're desperate. I'm really interested to sort of see if this is another year where they miss the NCAA tournament. What happens with Mark Fox? Because I think Seth Emerson, who works for our operation at Dog Nation, part of our company, wrote an interesting piece just sort of evaluating what should Georgia basketball fans be able to reasonably expect? And it's tough because, historically they haven't done a whole lot. And so is Mark Fox doing about all they can? I don't know. There's a bunch of great recruits in Georgia that don't stay home. Guys like Calipari and others come in and pluck those guys. What more can they do? Can they do any better than Mark Fox? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and moving beyond that, there are a lot of stories going on right now. We mentioned Mike Anderson, maybe the most significant win of the year for him, although he had some big ones early on and then let it all slip away. But issues at Missouri, problems, big-time problems at LSU. In terms of change, do you sense we're about to see quite a bit if Fox does not get in the tournament? And obviously Missouri and LSU are nowhere close to the tournament, or anywhere for that matter.
Yeah, Mark Fox is really the toughest call. To me, Johnny Jones is a call that should have been made a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't get it. When you fall flat with Ben Simmons, I don't care if you had a few guys injured. I don't care if you had some chemistry issues. That's on you, man. You had the best player in the country and another 5-star recruit who's still there in Blakeney. He was there last year. You had some veteran players. There was no reason for LSU to go off the rails the way they did. I've never been overly impressed with Johnny Jones, and certainly not this year. That, to me, is a no-brainer. But, LSU does weird things when it comes to hiring and firing coaches. So I think there should be change there. There probably should be change at Missouri, although that's a sneaky team right now that sort of quietly has really turned a corner. They've beaten 2 teams they shouldn't have and almost beaten 2 others. The last 4 games, they've either won or lost by 3 points. And that was a horrid Missouri team. So that's going to be a tough call because I do think Kim Anderson is a good coach. I mean, he won at a high level, at a lower level a school, but at a high level, won a national championship. So you figure he can coach, but he's not getting talent. Again, that's a situation where he's not getting the talent to Missouri. So we could have a big wave, of turnover coming.
Kyle, obviously a lot of influence by the Arkansas game the other night, but there's still 2.5, 3 weeks left. If you had to guess right now, let's move Kentucky and Florida off the board. South Carolina slipping badly right now. What do you see? Do you see 4 in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I think Kentucky, Florida, and South Carolina are firmly in. South Carolina is really one of the only schools in the league. When we talk about what's wrong with the SEC, it's getting those early non-conference wins. The league is scheduled better, but not won those games. Tennessee lost all those top games. But South Carolina got some stuff done in the non-conference, and so I think they've earned their way. They've won enough in conference. Unless they just totally implode, I think Frank Martin's team is in the field. I think Arkansas is in right now. They can't have any awful losses, but I think if they kind of hold serve the rest of the way, finish with just a solid finish and don't bow out in the first first game of the SEC tournament, I think Arkansas is there. So you got 4 teams. Now the question is can there be a 5th that sneaks in? Does Alabama keep piling up wins? They don't have really big impressive wins, but they have a good number of wins, particularly in the league. Alabama's there. If Georgia could knock off of Kentucky. And Tennessee, the computers love Tennessee, even though Tennessee is barely above 500 overall. If Tennessee could just get one of these big wins, the bubble's so bad this year, there could be that 5th team that sneaks in. I still think it probably settles at 4, though.
Kyle Tucker, 3 weeks after being with us at Rupp, another fantastic conversation. Kyle, many thanks. Look forward to visiting again soon.
Thanks again, Pete.
Great stuff. If you have to figure out why I said that, just check Twitter, please. Wow, that was really good. Kyle brings it again. Great stuff from Kyle Tucker. We will take a break. 30 minutes to go here. 855-242-7285. Glad you're back with us here on a Friday night. Let's go to Jimmy in Chicago. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, Paul. Well, we spent all this time over the years trying to find you a nickname, and it's just funny. Something like that just happens, and we've obviously got it. I mean, it's Pete.
Yeah, you may remember this, Jimmy. Many years ago on our Birmingham show, we had the governor of Alabama on, who, by the way, just got out of prison. And
Don Siegelman.
And I said, Governor, I actually knew him. I said, Governor, really great to have you on. He said, well, thank you, Phil. And I said, well, Governor, and he said, I said, Governor, my name is actually, and I never correct somebody. I said, my name is actually Paul. He said, oh, yeah, Phil Paulbaum. I said, okay. And that stuck for a number of years until he went to prison and people forgot about it. But
Yeah,
I don't think I don't think this is going away anytime soon.
No, and you're in great company. I mean, you're paired right there with Pistol Pete Maravich, one of the legendary figures in SEC history. Of course, Pete has two names because of the PMAC, the Pete Maravich Assembly Center.
But do you know, Jimmy, the best part of me changing my name to Pete? I don't have to change any of the monogramming on my shirts.
Well, and secondly, you don't have to change your name. The nickname it's just there. You can just add it anytime. It flows perfectly, and we've got it. It's really amazing. But it's funny because you had the guy that called in talking about the Archie Who game against Tennessee, the 38-0 game. Well, it's funny because the next night I was actually in high school, and the next night, Steve, I played high school, kind of grew up right outside of Knoxville, and we were at an SCA gathering the following night, and Steve Kiner had been scheduled to be there, and quite a while ago, and he was there, and he spoke, and he was a really nice guy. He was very humble, very soft-spoken. And once during the summer, back in those days, anybody could walk in the stadium and all that. And it was like June, July, or something like that. And I was just hanging around. I ran into a backup fullback there named Steve Wold, and Kiner and Reynolds and those guys were there. And he was just kind of a really introverted but very polite, just kind of a quiet guy. And then I later found out that when he made that Archie Who comment to the reporters leading up to to that season, 69, I guess, and when the reporter asked him that, he didn't say anything. He did it in a dry sense of humor, just Archie Who, very low key, very quiet, but it really got blown out. And it's funny because I was going to tell you this story. My high school coach played on Bowden Wyatt's last single wing team at Tennessee, and he told me a great story because we were talking about something to Billy Cannon, and it turned out he'd played at City High School, and in '59, the week after the famous punt return against Ole Miss,
they lost that game, didn't they?
No, they won.
LSU lost.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes. And then LSU held Ole Miss 4 times at the 1-yard line. So they play at Tennessee the next week, and my high school coach that's his official visit. He was standing at the goal line on the 2-point conversion. He was on the sideline at the goal line. I said, Coach Honey, what really happened? You've heard so many stories. He said, well, I'm going to tell you. They gave the ball to Cannon, and it looked like he was just going to score easily. And right before he got to the goal line, about 4 guys hit him. And everything stopped for kind of a split second. And everybody, people said they heard a whistle and all that stuff. He said, I didn't hear anything. After that, after everything stopped for a split second, man, he just exploded through those 4 guys and ended up about 4 yards in the end zone. But they ruled that he couldn't
I've never
stop,
heard that before. That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. So, and I'll tell you one other thing. Talking about my high school coach being at the visit at another FCA outing, Ray Buzzard, who was the great swimming coach at Tennessee. He happened to be an assistant coach at City High School in Chattanooga, where my high school coach played. And he was telling me a story where they played Macaulay, and it was my coach's senior year, Coach Honey. He was they ran 53 offensive plays. Coach Honey carried the ball on 52, and he played both ways back in those days. And he actually played with Namath a year, his rookie year in '65, and he really liked him. So. It was just really interesting when you talked about the.
No, that's a great story. I'd forgotten you were from there, Jimmy. Well, listen, thanks for the call as always from Chicago. Good to hear from you. Chris is up next. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Paul. How are you doing today?
Oh, we are doing well. Thank you.
Let me tell you what, today has been a record day for calls. It feels like Frying Pan Friday, doesn't it?
No, it's been fun. It does seem like old school today.
I'll tell you, I hope Booker calls back in because it was great to hear somebody lay down that,
he was one of my favorite calls.
Knowledge. He needs to call back in for sure. So I'll tell you why I'm calling today. I mean, I know the whole Harbaugh thing. I mean, let him win something and then maybe someone can pay attention to him. But what's going on with the high school coaches? I mean, I just keep seeing incident after incident. First of all, you had the high school coaches in Louisiana saying that Orgeron wasn't welcome to recruit their players. Now you got the other guy who said Saban wasn't allowed. Now that guy's been fired by his school.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Harbaugh's thing with the hiring that coach, which I do think is, I mean, personally, I feel like why wouldn't they look at that with the Cam Newton rule, right? I mean, it's worth something to somebody. So.
Yeah, no, you're right. We didn't talk about that because I never really took that coach very seriously down in Louisiana. I don't know the specifics on him being fired. I do not think that was the only thing. Apparently, there was a laundry list of things that had transpired.
Didn't smell right.
Yeah.
Didn't smell right at all. Like there's always where there's smoke, there's fire. I think.
No, you're not going to get fired in Louisiana for saying something about Nick Saban.
Well, I mean, I know. I'm about to head to Louisiana for Jazz Fest in a couple months, and I got to watch what I say.
No, it's not a good time. Louisiana is not a good place to wear Alabama gear.
Well, I haven't yet had my car keyed there, but when I go down through the quarter, I tend to play.
I do. I used to always
really
change. I have a bunch of plates in the back of my car, so whenever I go to another state, I just put the plates of that state on.
I have an infamous story about getting a bunch of my friends they weren't from here, and getting them to karaoke home Alabama at that karaoke place at the end of Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
The highlight was the pregnant woman standing on a chair flipping us off. That's epic. So welcome to Louisiana, right?
No doubt. Hey, Chris, thank you for the call. Really appreciate it. Let's continue. Dennis is in Colorado. Hello, Dennis.
Well, hello, Paul. I'm hoping we can talk just for a moment about basketball. I was actually reading USA Today, and you may have seen the big article about Pete Maravich.
I did see something. Yeah, I was going to read it, finish it tonight. But yeah, this is the anniversary. What is this?
40th anniversary of his NBA scoring title for that year. So I took the opportunity to get on YouTube, and I watched about a half an hour of his highlights, and I thought I would just ask you what memories you might have had of Pete Maravich, and if you ever got to
I must admit, I never saw him play in person. I do vaguely, and I mean vaguely, remember a game or two on television, but so few basketball games. I will tell you one story, though. I was in the studio many years ago with C.M. Newton, who was the coach at Alabama. I mean, many other places. He was at Vanderbilt and the athletic director of Kentucky. And I said, CM, I just got to ask you about, I think it was 69. I could be wrong. I said, what was it like to coach against Pete Maravich? He said, you're asking the wrong guy. I said, why is that? He said, we held him to 69 in Coleman Coliseum. They won the game, by the way, but I had no earthly idea where he was going. And, you could argue, and I'm at a disadvantage. I think I saw him a little bit more in the NBA when he wasn't quite the same. But I don't remember. And I've gotten to know Johnny Newman. I don't know if you remember that name. Johnny Newman followed.
Yes, I do.
Johnny followed Pete in the league at Ole Miss. There's a documentary coming out about Johnny, which I was interviewed for because I was a young. I was not even yet a. I was a teenager when Johnny Newman was a Memphis star, and they were very similar. Johnny only stayed 1 year at Ole Miss. I think had he stayed there for 3 years, he would have been close to Maravich in terms of numbers. But I don't think there's ever been anyone quite like Pete Maravich.
I would suggest that anyone who has an opportunity get on to YouTube and watch the highlights of his passing ability and some of the things that...
And Dennis, one more thing, and Dale Brown told me this years ago, there was no three-point shot back then. I mean,
exactly.
I don't know if somebody had ever gone back, but if you went back and put the three-point line in, there's no telling what his average would have been.
There's a portion portion in the paper about somebody went back and
Okay.
tried to figure that out, and they said he would have averaged 57
Yeah,
points.
I mean, Pete just threw it up. I mean, he was just such. His father was the coach, Presmarovich. He was originally, I think, at NC State, and I can't remember all the circumstances, but yeah, I remember that. I don't remember seeing him much, but I remember reading about it quite a bit.
Paul, I got one last question for you. Can you tell me whatever happened to Cotton Nash from Kentucky?
I don't know. I'll let somebody share that with me, but I remember him as one of the greats.
Yeah, I'd like to
know.
Well, Paul, thank you for the call. It's been a pleasure. I am exiled to Colorado, born in Atlanta, and a diehard Tide fan.
Glad to hear from you, Dennis. Thank you very much. We're up against a break here. Still a few minutes to go on this very memorable Friday night. I think, I know it's February, but somehow we're going to reflect back on this day in terms of chaos and confusion. This will be in the books. Thanks for your call. We'll be right back. Final couple of minutes here on this Friday night. We talked about a caller earlier, Booker from New Jersey, right outside of New York, and so many people commented, and he called back, and we want to bring him on because he was one of the most unique callers we've had here in a while. Booker, thanks for rejoining us.
Oh, thanks for letting me back on, Paul.
Oh, you bet. Our pleasure.
Yeah, I heard you talking about Pete Maravich a moment ago.
Yes.
And I remember when his dad was coaching over at Clemson, and Pete was a little guy. I used to take the coaches at the college that I attended on recruiting trips, and I saw when he was a little kid playing basketball, and he left Clemson and went to NC State.
Right.
Followed Norm Sloan, I think, and Frank Howard almost wanted to kill him. He said, "I'm going to get me another coach," and he hired a guy named Bobby Roberts.
Oh yeah,
from inside, and then of course he went. But I used to see Pete when he was a little guy. I guess
I could be wrong. I think Norman may have succeeded him because
may have succeeded.
Norm won the NCAA championship in the 70s.
He did. Well, so he must have.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he followed every case.
I think he did. Not that I know that much about ACC basketball, but I think that's exactly what happened. And then Norm Sloan came, and then with David Thompson and
that's
beat
correct.
UCLA.
So it was legendary.
Norman ended up going to Florida.
That's correct. Press followed
Case, yeah.
Coach Everett Case.
Yeah, he's a famous coach.
Yeah, but that guy was telling you about the first player for Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma. His name was Prentice Gault, Gault.
Okay.
He was a running back, and he played for the Cardinals.
Okay.
For a little while in the pros. And the last one, what do you think about Darryl Royal in that coaching list?
Again, just a phenomenal coach, and you hate to say there's 25 people that are all great, but Darryl Royal was a seminal coach. From the wishbone to championships, he won one of the most famous college football games ever against Frank Broyles, the famous 69 game with Arkansas and Texas.
That's correct.
And, they both retired the same year. I think they played each other in the final game. I believe it was 75. But, Darryl Royal is another guy. I think Darryl Royal coached at Mississippi State briefly, too, as a head coach.
Yeah, well, I just remember him. He was, when I first got it, to know him, he was Bud Wilkinson's quarterback.
Wow,
at Oklahoma.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he was a Bud Wilkinson protege.
I did not realize that. I should have.
That's right. If you check, I think he played quarterback.
Booker, I tell you what, we got to get you back here. I learned a lot talking to you. Listen, you have a great weekend, and look forward to visiting with you again very soon.
Same to you, Paul.
Thanks,
I
Booker.
really
Booker
enjoy
in
your
Hackensack, New Jersey. What a show! Started off with all the hullabaloo with Harbaugh cracking on me, and we end right here.
Hi, this is Adam Schefter from ESPN. Please join us on the latest Know Them From Adam podcast with Dwight Howard as he talks about Kobe Bryant, James Harden, and the one young NBA player he'd pay to see.
On the latest episode of The Bill Barnwell Show, I talked to ESPN The Magazine's Mina Kimes about the latest episode of The Bachelor. Hot stuff. You can check out the show on iTunes or by going to the ESPN app on your phone.
The NBA All-Star Game this Sunday.
Here's Curry behind the back, half-court heave on its way, and he hits it!
Coverage begins Sunday at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.